Suicidal people of Reddit who are currently genuinely happy and enjoying life right now. What's your story? I had rope around my neck a handful of years ago, kneeling on my upturned laundry hamper, with my ankles tied to my hips so I couldn't just instinctively stand. My dog came into my room, which I was in the closet of, opened the door, looked at me, and just sat down. She knew I wasn't okay. It made me cry harder knowing what I was leaving, and even more so showing me everything I was hurting. She got up, took a few steps towards me and put her head in my lap, and whimpered. I untied myself, and just sat in my room with her. I told myself that was changing and I just started telling myself that I was happy. I was going to have a good day. I wouldn't think about it, and wouldn't think about what led me to get to that point that day. It didn't work for a few months, but now I don't have to try to ignore the depression. I just kind of do. It shows up, obviously, but I just stopped letting it get to me. Edit. Thank you all for the kind words and awards. It means a lot to me. I work hard to heal the cause of the pain that sits underneath the suicidal ideation. Lots of therapy for trauma, years of 12-step recovery, time out and meditation retreats every year, psychedelic plant medicine work, you name it. I've done it. I have a wonderful support network and beautiful partner now. The solution for me has been to learn to be compassionate toward all of myself, even parts that want to kill me. It's a daily endeavor but worth it. Internal family systems therapy, EMDR, sensory motor psychotherapy, adult children of alcoholics, helped me save my life. My best friend was suicidal because her life was impossible. Basically, abusive husband, special needs kids, no money, lots of mental health problems that had been around for years despite medication and therapy. She was very serious about wanting to die. I took her very seriously and didn't dismiss her. I think that if someone is in so much pain, it's respectful and real to acknowledge that. To them, suicide might seem like the best solution. I have wrestled with suicidal thoughts at periods throughout my life and done proper research and had formulated a reliable plan in the past, including a way of implementing it to make sure I wasn't making a mistake, which was to put a waiting period into the plan. I told her that she had to hang on to a specific date in about 6 months' time. We picked it carefully for symbolic reasons, and also because it wasn't near kids' birthdays or holidays, etc. We both put it in our diaries and called it Death Day and would joke about it. We both have dark senses of humor. I said that if she got to that day and still wanted to go through with it, then I would help her, and I was absolutely serious. We talked it all through, how it would be done, how to make sure I wouldn't face criminal prosecution afterwards. It was a very clear plan, and then we didn't talk about the details after that, just made jokes about the day. I didn't want her to dwell on it, but I wanted her to be absolutely sure that she had an escape route that would work. Then, we used the time to get her out of her marriage, get her a better living situation, get the kids better help. The death day approached, and a few weeks before I checked in and asked if she wanted me to get the stuff we needed together. She said number. I asked if she wanted to extend the deadline for another 6 months. She also said no to that. We joked a bit more. All was well. That was about 2 years ago now. She's doing great. No suicidal thoughts. Enjoying her life. Her kids are more settled, still difficult, but manageable. She's got pets and plants and is just generally happier. I'm so proud of her. I'm so proud of our friendship. Gonna say it. I'm so proud of me for knowing what she needed. That response isn't for everyone, obviously, but I knew that for my friend, she needed to be taken seriously. She needed to know that I was on her side, and I was. I respect her. If she wanted to die, I was genuinely going to help, no matter how much it would have pained me. But I also knew, if I could just buy some more time, her feelings might change. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem, so buy some time. 6 months more on this earth is nothing compared to an eternity of being dead. Set a deadline, to reappraise, but promise yourself that if you get to that point and you still feel as bad, or worse, then you really will go through with it, and have made a detailed and workable plan for how to do it so you can feel secure that it will work. I personally found that, for me, and for my bestie, once I knew I had an out, and I knew I had 6 months to really decide if it was right for me, it changed everything. It's like what some of the other commentators have said about near-death experiences, you suddenly reappraise everything. It's like you're manufacturing your own near-death experience. You could die in 6 months' time, so let's just see if this whole life thing is actually worth it. TLDR, buy some time and see if your feelings change. I wanted to die because I felt useless and burdensome to those around me. I was bored with everything and felt stuck, and like my life would just be like this forever. There is more to it than that, but I have never really been able to describe it. Regardless, I was miserable and wasn't telling anyone. So one day, I tried to hang myself. I had been thinking about it and wanting to for a day or two before, but one day I just did it. Luckily, my dad heard me squirming from outside my room and came in, took the belt down and got me to a facility. I did, as I was hanging, realized that I didn't want to die. Luckily I did not jump from a high place or blow my brains out, otherwise I'd have been gone. Honestly, I don't really remember all that much of what we did at the facility. I was 14 when I tried to commit suicide, so this was about 10 years ago. At the facility, I vaguely recall people coming in to talk to those of us at the facility as a group about ways of dealing with our feelings and such, and I recall hating being trapped in that place and unable to leave. I had very bad homesickness problems back then, and didn't like being trapped somewhere and not allowed to leave, etc. For example, I hated sleepaway camps as a kid. I also remember some of the people who were there with me, like one kid who stole his dad's car and went on a 500-mile joyride, and another who drank bleach and nearly died. Their families came to see them too, and saw just how happy people can make other people. My family coming to see me really helped. The facility was a good 4 hours from where I lived, but they drove down there just to talk to me. That sounds selfish, and I guess it is, but it helped. They didn't drive down every day or anything, but most of my family came by once. It made me realize that I was really important to them and not a burden. And as time went on, I developed my own ways of dealing with feelings of being depressed, or lonely, or useless. Now as an adult, well, as adult as I can be, I still struggle with depression. That said, I would say overall I am a happy person. Even though I get depressed, I go do things that make me happy. Although that doesn't always work, it's better than doing something I don't like. I just remind myself that even though I am extremely depressed, there are lots of people who love me and who I love, and that if I can make even one person happy by being here, then pushing through feeling numb and sad and lonely is worth it, and that I will feel happier in the future. I am happy when I write this, but occasionally that black dog comes back around. It just happens. Hopefully this is a good answer and made sense. I was horribly depressed. I wanted to die so badly. And one day I did. Not by my own hand, but my heart condition keeled me over. Though I was resurrected by heart surgery and paramedics. After that I realized that it was the scariest moment of my life. And that I never wanted to die again. I was sad for a few years after that, but now I'm engaged and on the road to having my dream job. To think I almost gave it all up all those years back. My attempt was not driven so much by misery, but more desperation and madness. After smoking weed for a few years, I developed schizophrenia. I had severe emotional and psychological problems that I didn't talk about, and no one asked. I didn't even know what was happening to me. After being seriously unhappy for years, It came to a head when I became acutely psychotic for the first time. I started thinking that the radio was talking directly to me and that I was telepathic. I'd barely slept or eaten in a week. I was rambling and incoherent. I made the unplanned decision to exit with a razor blade in the bath at about 6 a.m. one weekday. I fell asleep, but woke not long after. The bleeding had stopped and I was patently not dead. I had locked a relative out of their apartment by losing their keys, and they were staying the night at my place. They found me, and I finally got psychiatric help. It's been a very long road. Education was life-changing, and it took me a while to accept that I needed it in the first place. I spent many long years just sitting at the computer alone with a beer in my hand. I had a lot of horrible moments at attempting to socialize while feeling like death inside. The tide just gradually receded. Over the course of 15 years, every year was a little better. It finally got to a point where I felt I was ready to make a serious effort with my mental and physical health. I made a list of things I knew were supposed to make me feel better, and I just started checking them off one at a time. I started a self-directed CBT course, started going on long walks, meditating, working out, cooking and dieting, journaling. Don't get me wrong, I'm not whirling through flower-filled meadows every day, but it's so much better than it was. I actually have a lot of good days, and that bad or ones aren't anywhere near where they used to be. They say all your cells renew themselves in 7 years, and I feel that I am literally a different person. I understand myself better, I'm calmer, more rational, and a better friend. That night in the bath was one of my worst moments. I'm so glad I didn't succeed. Hormonal birth control. I became suicidal after 6 months on the Nova Ring. Felt like a completely different person, and had a moment of clarity on the end of my period. Something was completely different from the rest of my life. Oh, maybe it's my birth control. So glad I figured that out. Switched to a generic 28-day pill again, and things have been fine ever since. Not everyone will share the same experience with the Nova Ring. This is because we are all very different. So please talk to your healthcare provider that choose the right options for your own body. Nova Ring was wrong for me, but may be a good match for other people. I'm 44 and have been severely depressed for as long as I can remember, on and off. 4 years ago I attempted suicide. It didn't work, but I was sectioned in an institution for 7 weeks. As luck would have it, there was no room for me in an NHS institution, so they sent me halfway across the country to a private one. The NHS paid, of course. When I get there, it turns out that it's the Priory, the place where all the rock stars and celebrities go to get clean or whatever. It felt like a high-class vacation in Wayne Manor. Anyway, I was given the best treatment and they finally diagnosed me and put me on the right medication. I've been fine ever since, with a few stumbles. Nothing I can't handle now. I'm thankful every day that my attempt didn't succeed. I suffered from depression for several years. I finally started going to counseling and made some massive changes in my life. Now I look at things for how they are and not what I think they are. I tell myself to see the bad situations for as bad as they are and no worse than they are. If something is out of my control, what will be, and no amount of worrying will change that, so why worry about it? Take each day as it comes, good or bad, and always appreciate what you have in your life, no matter how little or how much you have. I was in college doing amazing. I was perfect, a 4.0 student every semester. However, I suffered a stroke at a very young age. When attempting college again after, I realized my cognitive abilities weren't what they were. I couldn't really see a point anymore, but that was so many years ago. I just don't focus that part of my life. In reality, I just try to forget about it. The biggest form of happiness I had was becoming a father. By forgetting about all of that and just living a normal life, I became complacent. I was going along great, had a lot of friends, finally got my first serious relationship, had a healthy community, and was making good grades. Then COVID struck. We were sent home without even a chance to say goodbye to one another. Most of my friends graduated or started schooling from home, and it became a lot harder to stay in contact with them. On top of that, because the year was so chaotic, my grades started to slip, and I failed a class, meaning that I wouldn't be able to graduate on time. As I was at home for the summer, things got worse. My girlfriend fell into a depression too, and fights began to break out between us. My mom, who I live with during school breaks, didn't know how to handle my depression and in frustration made it worse. I felt like an outcast at work, and had very little contact with any of my friends. Then I learned that my grandmother passed away. She ate some bad shellfish. Then another one of my grandmothers, who I'm extremely close to, got very sick and nearly died, and I couldn't even visit her. And then, as if to add insult to injury, I discovered my former roommate died in a car accident. For some reason, I decided to go back to school in the fall, thinking being back there would be better for me. The school was so restrictive with its COVID regulations, though, that it seemed near impossible to make new friends or to see my old ones. The only people I interacted with regularly were my roommates, my girlfriend, and the occasional teacher wondering why I missed an assignment, and there were a lot of those. I failed 4 classes that semester, and knew pretty early on that something like that would probably happen, but was too stubborn to drop the classes. On top of all of this, I began to make a stronger effort to get to know my girlfriend's family, but they rejected my efforts at every turn. There was always an excuse. I began to believe it was something wrong with me. I've since learned it wasn't. This made her depression worse and thus made our fights worse. This is when I began to feel like I had no future. I wouldn't graduate school. I would be swamped with that my whole life. I couldn't marry the girl of my dreams. Even then, life wouldn't let up. It was during this time that I learned my great-uncle had brain tumors and may die as a result, and I couldn't even visit him because of the hospital's regulations. Also note that I am an extremely religious person. Because all of this was happening to me, I began to feel like my God had left me, and that he was no longer protecting me like he once had. I've never been one to believe that God gives all of his followers an easy life. But so much bad was happening that I couldn't see how he was still with me. For the first time since I could remember, I knew what it was like to feel like God wasn't with me. When the end of my semester had come around, enough people had told me that I needed to take a break that I realized that being stubborn about it wouldn't help anything. I withdrew from school and decided to return home for a semester. Things didn't get instantly better. My mom still didn't really handle my depression well, with one particular shouting match leading her to nearly kick me. Make the most of the lot I've been given. A lot of my help in getting out of this rut is because of my best friend. He didn't even realize how bad it was until the suicide scare, but he checked on me nearly daily from then on. My girlfriend was the one who sustained me throughout my depression, but my friend was the one who gave me that last push I needed to get out. Since then, things have gotten better in various ways. My great-uncle is fully recovered, and his tumors were benign. My grandmother is still working through everything. My girlfriend has sorted out her depression. My mom and I have reconciled. I'm back into school, and I've developed better habits to keep myself from failing the next go-round. I've finally been able to figure out my girlfriend's family's social dynamic, which is problematic, but that's a whole other story, and have gotten her father's approval to marry her. Circumstances have changed, but really, it was actually my emotional state that improved first. I was horribly depressed. I wanted to die so badly. And one day I did. Not by my own hand, but my heart condition keeled me over. Though I was resurrected by heart surgery and paramedics. After that I realized that it was the scariest moment of my life. And that I never wanted to die again. I was sad for a few years after that, but now I'm engaged and on the road to having my dream job. To think I almost gave it all up all those years back.